Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Snowfall Aftermath. We will be recapping Snowfall Season 6, Episode 8, and the title of this episode is Ballad of the Bear. And I'm joined by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And so we had a very interesting episode. It kind of picked up right where the last one left off. We see everyone still in their funeral clothes and everything. So yeah, a lot happened in this episode, and you can tell that we're getting close to the end game now. So yeah, it's getting real tense at the moment. But we're gonna get right into our takeaways in just a moment, and let everyone know what we thought of this episode. But first of all, just a quick reminder, please do hit the like button. That is very important. And also consider subscribing to the channel if you like the content on the page. We also do recaps of Power if you're into that TV show. So look out for those recaps also. And please do leave your comments. Feel free to speak your mind. Let us know what you think about Snowfall and what you saw in this episode, and also what you think of the discussion that we are about to have about the episode. So let us know your thoughts and theories and all of that good stuff. And yeah, I won't keep you waiting too long. We're gonna get right into our takeaways, where we each kind of give three, takeaways from this episode, and just kind of add our perspective to what we saw. This week it is Richard's turn to go first with the takeaways. So take it away when you're ready, Rich.
So let me start off by saying, yeah, this was an outstanding episode of Snowfall. The perfect way to pick up the pace after last week's episode in which they honored Jerome. So, and by the way, Amin Joseph did direct this episode, so he did a phenomenal job directing the episode. I like the fact that he did direct it, and if you think about it, even though his character Uncle Jerome is no longer here, I'm pretty sure he would have wanted Franklin and Louie to try to team up and try to do something to take out Teddy. So I like how they honor his wishes, even though the character is no longer here. And yes, Amin Joseph, excellent job. So I just wanted to make a comment on that real quick. Now I have three quick takeaways for this episode. Um, so let's go ahead and let's start with obviously let's talk about Franklin and the family in this episode. I liked how at the beginning of the episode, they're at the repass, and Franklin does eventually have a conversation with Gustavo. We'll get into that in a little bit, but he does have a bit of a flashback. They have a flashback to a scene that we saw in the past in Snowfall when Franklin visited Melody, and he had that whole line about he about finally understanding that someone's main job in life is to protect the people that they love. And I thought that it was very interesting that they would place that line in there because clearly Franklin has been dealing with a lot of different things. And I'm pretty sure he thinks that everything is going to end well. But as this episode showed us, plans don't always go according to the way that you think they are going to turn out. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But pretty much, he decides that he talks to Gustavo and at the repass, and they have this discussion about let's see if we can put together this plan to take out Teddy. The same thing that they discussed in the previous episode, but he does involve Louie in this as well. And the plan is that Louie is basically going to work with Franklin to stage a kidnapping, you know, to hold him captive, and then pretty much after he's held captive, leave him somewhere where Teddy can get access to him. That's the plan. Now, what I did love about this episode, again, at the repass, how it showed all the various characters. And then again, we saw this interaction between Leon and Scully because we were wondering what they were doing with those two characters throughout the last couple of episodes. And you finally see that Scully has a heart to heart conversation with Leon. It's very brief, but he basically just tells him that he forgives him for what happened. because we all know about the history that those two characters have. So I'm really glad they put that in there because I feel like they needed to come to that point. They had to get to that point at sometime because we saw the characters were together in a couple of episodes previously. When the episode when Jerome and them went to try and rescue Louie, they were both there. So I'm glad that they took the time to show us they interacted, they squashed the beef, and now they can go on continue on with their lives. So I appreciate that they put that in there. But yeah, just seeing all the characters interact at the repass, I thought was interesting. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Franklin, Louie, and Gustavo have this plan. So Franklin does tell Veronique uh, that if things don't work out, that she and Sissy they need to leave the country. He wants them to be safe. He wants the baby to be safe, so on and so forth. But the thing is that after he has that conversation, the next scene she basically takes him to Louie, where and basically he tells Louie to rough him up. Now, I will say this. You saw Louie throwing a couple of hooks left and right, messing up Franklin, and then she got really into it towards the end because, again, she still blames Franklin for everything that happened to Jerome, so on and so forth. But what I will question is, I don't know why Franklin would let Veronique stay there to witness that. He could have waited until she left and then got that beat down because it's a lot of stress and strain on her, especially with the fact that she is carrying their baby. So I don't know if that was a good decision by Franklin. And then you did see later in this episode when they went back to Veronique, she had some pains in her stomach. So it makes you wonder, is something going to happen with the baby? Is she going to lose the baby? We'll probably get an answer on that next week, but clearly all this stuff that's happening, it's impacting her. So it's not good for her to be around all of this stuff that's going on. So, but pretty much they go ahead and they execute the plan, and things do not work out the way that they're supposed to because Gustavo isn't able to show up because of what happens to Gustavo. And I'll get into Gustavo in a minute, but I just want to say, as a Franklin fan, um, I mean, obviously, like I said on this podcast before, none of these characters are good people. They're all flawed individuals. They all have all done bad things, but you still are going to root for some of them to be successful because you want them to get payback. So I was glad to see at the end of this episode, even though things didn't work out the way that Franklin wanted them to, he still did get rescued by Gustavo. And then at the end, you finally see that Gustavo has finally turned on Teddy. So it makes me very curious to see what's going to happen next week. But this episode did a very good job of building the tension because the entire episode, I thought something was going to happen to Gustavo. I thought something could have happened to Franklin when he finally when he finally was around Teddy and Teddy was ready to kill him. That was very tense moments right there. So they did a fantastic job of building on that the entire episode. And then again, at the end, we see that now Franklin is going to have the opportunity to turn the tables on Teddy. So I can't wait to see what happens next weekend as far as that's concerned. So that's pretty much my takeaway for Franklin and the family in this episode. Now to get to Gustavo, Franklin does give him the passports and the money that he requested. That was the whole reason why he went to the repass in the first place. Uh, Gustavo then had a conversation with, you know, basically his girl and his kids. And that whole conversation where he gives them the luchador mask, so on and so forth, that felt to me like this was Gustavo saying goodbye to them, like something was gonna so that like it felt to me like the character could get killed in this episode. Because that was a goodbye speech. It's not no, I'll see you later. That was you need to get out of here, go somewhere peaceful, and that's it. Now things could still go sideways for Gustavo in the next two episodes. So everybody shouldn't celebrate just yet. We did get our moment of seeing him rescue Franklin, but we'll have to see what happens. But pretty much, uh, he does decide. You know, he still has to work with the DEA, so he does talk with the DEA in this episode, and they decide, well, you're going to be meeting up with the Colombians to get that shipment. We need to have our other person on the team, the lady named Amanda. We need to have you come. We need to have her come in there and work with you to basically make sure that you are not lying about any of these plans. And of course, Gustavo tells a really bad DEA joke when they ask him who is this woman, And then of course, then he says, "Oh no, it's just my cousin. She's just helping me out with a drop." Now, let me say this right now. Yes, the joke was bad, of course, but I mean, this is common logic. Why would anybody bring someone that the other person doesn't know when you're supposed to be meeting somebody to get an illegal product? We've seen that in countless shows where the other person that it meets up with them, they say, "Wait a minute, who is this new person?" And then they question who is this person. So the DEA wasn't too intelligent with deciding to include her in this because that already was going to raise suspicion. I understand that they were suspicious of Gustavo, but also Gustavo didn't do himself any favors by having that DEA joke. So bad on both sides. But it is what it is. It is what happened. And eventually, that made her suspect that Gustavo was up to something when he had the DEA joke after the deal was done. So she basically, Tony Morano and him, they do go, they're planning to meet up. They're planning to drop the stuff off at the warehouse. Then Gustavo gets the page and he decides to make a call, obviously checking in on his family because that's what that number was with the page. And then, of course, trying to basically meet up with Franklin. And then he does get the page from Teddy and gets the call back from Teddy. But then they're like, "Wait a second, we already know that your girl and your kids are gone. They've already disappeared. So we're going to arrest you. The deal is off." So of course he gets arrested, and then as he is being escorted to the jail, Ruben comes out of nowhere, hits the car, and basically causes them to crash. He then turns his gun and kills Amanda, and then he basically takes Gustavo out of the vehicle. Now, I will say this: the Ruben character also not intelligent because the other three people in that car, I'm pretty sure they're still alive. They already know that everybody's going to be at the warehouse, so I hope that Franklin is wise. Franklin and Gustavo, they get out of that warehouse. They get Teddy out of the warehouse because if they stay in that warehouse in the next episode, a lot of stuff is going to pop off when the DEA gets there because they know exactly where these guys are at. So, but that wasn't a wise move of Ruben to you killed the lady, right? But the other three people are still in the car. Obviously, they're not dead, so not a good decision to do that. But it is what it is. But yes, Gustavo, like I said, they do get to the warehouse, and then they see that Teddy obviously has Franklin strung up. Some very crazy imagery that they use in that scene, which does again highlights the a lot of issues with Teddy as a character, which I will get into. But pretty much Gustavo does rescue Franklin after getting into it with Teddy. Now he does, they do cuff Teddy to the machine, which we did see. But then pretty much after that, what ends up happening is that he gets into a little bit of a scuffle with Ruben. Now you see my name on the screen. I am a retired referee, so I could tell you we know Gustavo knows how to wrestle from earlier in the season, so I can tell you as well. So I'm glad that he was able to win this matchup because it would have been a bad look if he didn't win it. So, but yeah, he takes out Ruben for the time being, rescues Franklin, and now he asks Franklin, "What do you want to do?" And again, that's how we're going to find out what happens next week. Now, the final takeaway that I have for this episode is about Teddy because while all this stuff is happening in the episode, we have to do acknowledge that Teddy does have an interesting interaction with the CIA, and they say if he transfers the funds, they can get him his badge back. And of course, that makes him think, okay, I don't trust them anymore. He goes to Parissa and tells her that he won't transfer the money, that they have to figure out other plans outside of the CIA. Then, of course, Parissa ends up, she goes through his things and she finds pretty much a ring, his mom's ring. He sees the ring. At first, he is mad that she went through his stuff, but then he decides to propose to her. Now, I want to make a comment about this real quick because I made a comment about this to Gary before we started recording today. I understand the writers want to humanize Teddy as a character, make you feel as though, yes, we want to see him have some type of future with Parissa. But quite honestly, I don't give a damn about any of that because I don't like the character. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing him tortured next week the same way he tortured Franklin in this episode. Because when he had Franklin, tied up, this guy was about to go to Walter White levels of getting rid of his body, so to speak. So yeah, I don't like the character, but I do find it funny how they try to humanize the character, because it makes me wonder if there are people out there that watch this show and actually like this Teddy character. He's not a likable character. As I said, every character is flawed, and Franklin has also made some bad decisions within his life on the show as well. So I'm not saying that Franklin is a saint, even though that is his last name. But what I am saying is that the Teddy character is a lot worse. He's killed a lot of people. He has evil intentions. So this is a character you want to see get taken out. So we'll see what happens next week. I can't wait to see what Franklin does to as far as torturing him. But I will say this: I do hope that in torturing Teddy, he does finally reveal some more details, or maybe confesses that he actually killed Alton. Because with only 2 episodes left in the season, I don't have a ton of confidence that we're going to get any closure on Alton or Peaches, and that'll be kind of disappointing. I mean, it won't be too disappointing, because really, this is about the final showdown between Teddy and Franklin. But I do hope, as a viewer, we get some closure on those two characters, some definitive closure, not no theory about what could have potentially happened. I want a definitive answer on both of those characters, if possible. We'll see what happens. But pretty much that wraps up my takeaways for this episode. Again, Ahmed Joseph did a fantastic job on the episode. And again, with only 2 episodes left, I can't wait to see what happens now that the tables are turned on Teddy and his plan did not work. The question is what comes next, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So excellent job.
Oh yeah, definitely. Excellent takeaways as always. I'm glad you mentioned the melody flashback, because that was a interesting moment to see. Because I know I think it was Raiwan asked if we'll see that character again or something. So yeah, that was an interesting callback to see Melody in that flashback. And of course, the quote was very relevant that Franklin said, the protect the people you love and everything. So yeah, that was good. And you're absolutely right. Armin Joseph did do a great job of directing the episode also. So yeah, great takeaways, good observations as always. So yeah, I'm gonna get right into my takeaways, and then we'll have a bit of a back and forth discussion because I do have some questions. So, but before that, let me just go ahead and knock out my takeaways. So, firstly, I'll say that it was a like I did enjoy the pace of the episode. It was a very nice build up of events. How everything played out, like in the first half, because you knew that you knew something major was going to happen, because we already know that Franklin has a plan and Gustavo only has 48 hours or however long it is at this point. So we knew something major was gonna happen, but they did a good job of like setting up all the little pieces, all the plot points and stuff and developments. And I feel like a lot of conversations we saw in this could be final conversations between people. So, like, for example, you had Gus and his lady and the children, that felt very final because, of course, they're leaving. But then also you had the Teddy and Parissa, and the whole thing that you broke down just a moment ago, Rich, with the ring and everything. The fact that she found the ring, and he was a bit upset at first, but then he went ahead and he got on one knee and proposed and everything. And I suppose that was supposed to be like a feel good moment for Teddy or whatever, but obviously we don't feel that way. It wasn't feel good. It was okay, whatever. Like, we hope you die after this, basically. But like, it's still, it did also feel final. Like, this could be like their final communication, because just the way things are playing out at this moment, it feels like we're leading right towards the end of the story. So yeah, that felt kind of final. And then what else? Oh, and then even Franklin and Veronique, I feel like there's a possibility that they might not talk again. There's a strong possibility, and it relates to something that I do want to ask later on. But I feel like there's a strong possibility she might just up and leave now. Especially after what she saw in this episode with, you mentioned seeing Franklin get beaten up by a even though it was fake and they staged it or whatever, like just seeing that was it's not a very normal thing to see. Like if you're having a baby with someone and you're watching them get beat up by their auntie because they have to, put this plan in place and everything. So yeah, it's a very abnormal thing to see in her position. So I wouldn't be surprised. We saw she had something happen. Like I don't think her wart broke yet, but like she had the stomach contractions or whatever. And so after that, I feel like she might just up and leave because she probably wanted Franklin to be there with her in that moment as well. Like when she's going through something like that, she probably wants her partner there to comfort her and be able to help her and stuff. So like all of this uncertainty of being around Franklin, I wouldn't be surprised if she just ups and leaves. And I mean, Franklin did kind of tell her, to somewhat do that, if anything goes wrong. Like I believe he told her to find Sissy and then get out of here, but she might just up and leave on her own and go to Cassandra, her own mother, So I think there's a strong possibility that Franklin might not see her again, the way things are going. So that felt very final too. So yeah, like I just like the whole build up because we knew from the trailer that we were gonna get a lot of intense moments in this, but like just the way it was paced and the way they built it up, I think was really well done. And Armin Joseph did a good job directing it all as well. Um, as for Ruben, so Ruben isn't, we saw what happened where, yeah, I agree with you, Rich. He made a mistake by not killing everyone in the car. He should have shot them all in the head for good measure or whatever. But he rescued, he rescued Gustavo from being arrested, and then they turned up at the warehouse together, and Ruben had Gustavo basically handcuff Teddy to the forklift or wherever it was, and then he told him to get the other gun because he probably has a gun in his boot or something, and then Gustavo he turned on Ruben and ended up beating him up and pummeling him. But he's not dead, so there's going to be more, and I think he had something up his sleeve, a plan B or something of that nature. And I guess we will talk about the trailer a bit later also, but we do hear that there is something else, that Gustavo and Franklin is probably going to have to deal with, so he does have some of the leverage out there. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he had other plans set up just in case all of this went wrong. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has up his sleeve and how that's going to affect Gustavo and Franklin in the next episode. I feel like Gustavo is going to be pretty busy trying to fix whatever Gustavo has, and maybe he'll even kill Ruben after Ruben tells him what he has on him or whatever. They might even kill him, just for good measure, and because at this point they're in the end game, so they want to wrap things up as clean as possible. So anything that ties them to the crime and what happened, I think they're looking to get rid of it now. So once Ruben tells them what he's got on them, I wouldn't be surprised if they just kill him. So that's going to be, you know, something we'll see next week, I guess. And then my final takeaway, just that whole final act was crazy. Of course, the trailer made us believe it was going to unfold in one way, but it kind of unfolded another way because the trailer made it seem like maybe Teddy and Ruben were racing towards Franklin in the cars, and one of them drove into each other or whatever, but it was a little different than that. So, and we saw that Louis actually did go ahead with the plan and everything, and that she helped out Franklin. So that none of this was actually intentional on her part. So yeah, like it was it was really intense and really well done. Um, and I really thought for a moment that Gustavo actually might have a final heel turn at the end when he went for Ruben, when he beat him up and everything. I thought he might actually have a final heel turn and like turn on Franklin and actually be loyal to Teddy. Like I thought, is he gonna do it? Like, but then he ended up saving Franklin, and then Franklin had that final moment of triumph where he looked at Teddy, and he was like, "Yeah, you don't messed up now." He gave him that look. So I can't wait to see Franklin be unleashed on Teddy next week. Yeah, overall, I'm real happy with the episode and how it turned out. Like it was paced very well. There's not a lot more to say about it because it was so like direct. Like we knew what it was. There was no like subtlety behind it. We knew what was happening the entire time, and I feel like you need that clarity when you're getting towards the end of the story. So like we're just seeing the results of everything unfold. Over these past like 6 seasons, we're just seeing the culmination of it all unfold now. So I think it was really well done, and it has me looking forward to the next two episodes. So yeah, those are my takeaways for this episode, and let's get right into the questions and discussions now because there is a lot to talk about here. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is like based on what happened here and the fact that Franklin now has the upper hand. Do you think that next week could possibly be the end of Teddy? Like, could we see the end of him, his demise, in the next episode even? Because there's two episodes left. I feel like next episode, like anyone can kind of go at this point. Like any character could be gone at any time. So I think bodies are gonna, they're gonna start dropping at this point. It's gonna be like Infinity War at this point. Like, so what do you think, Rich? Could next week be Teddy's last episode? One thing I will say is that we know that Teddy's very cunning, so he's someone who could also have backup plans in place too, and also he's a talker, so I think he has the ability to get into Franklin's head a little bit. So he could maybe try his hand at like messing with Franklin's psyche a little bit and trying to manipulate him on a psychological level. So, but what do you think? Do you think that Franklin will overcome it and maybe take him out?
Well, that's a great question. Um, Obviously, as a fan, a fan of Franklin, and a viewer of the show, you want to see Franklin get his revenge on Teddy. Uh, well, let me start by saying this. I do want to give a shout out to JB, who has been commenting on these episodes, because he made a comment that the CIA pretty much now it's at a point where they know that Teddy is very dangerous, so they may take him out anyway. And the thing is that, like I said, it's so important that everybody is at this warehouse because everyone knows where the warehouse is at. The CIA knows where it's at. The DEA knows where it's at. So I would hope that if Franklin is going to torture Teddy, they go somewhere else and they not stay there. But I kind of think he is going to stay there. And again, that's bad on all fronts. Um, so here's the thing with Teddy is that I think that if I had to make a guess in this entire episode, right, it was the whole thing about Franklin had a plan, and the plan did not go according to it didn't work out exactly how he hoped it would. and he got tortured a little bit. He got tortured from Louie. Obviously, that was orchestrated. But then when Teddy shows up, and then the threat of almost losing your life, I kind of feel like that really escalated things to another level. So I can see why Franklin is furious and wants to get revenge, wants to take out Teddy in the next episode. I have no idea if he's actually going to be able to do it though. And the thing is, this is why it comes, about what it's important to know what Teddy's backup plan is. If there's other information he knows that he never told Franklin, now he can make a comment in the next episode and confess to Franklin and say, "I didn't kill your father, but I have him hidden somewhere," or something to that effect. That kind of would, I think, change things a little bit, but not necessarily. That's why I said I want to see, number one, how Franklin is going to torture him and what information he's going to try to get out of Teddy. Uh, we're going through this entire process. The other thing worth mentioning is that the whole thing that I mentioned earlier about Ruben failing to take out the DEA. We already know that the DEA took photos of Gustavo basically working along with Louie on a deal. So when we saw the trailer that Louie was running and there were cops at her place, you have to go back to this episode and go back to the conversation that Gustavo had with Franklin after the repass was ending, where he asked him, "If you told Louie what I told you about the DEA is involved and they saw her," and he said, "No, I didn't tell her because I didn't want her to run, um, and I'll just worry about that later. I'll help her out later." So again, Franklin thinking of himself instead of telling others, getting others assistance to help him do what he needs to do for himself instead of telling them what's that they need to be careful. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that, because it may not end well for Louie. Still, she could end up getting arrested next week, and then that's it for that character. But I will say this: as far as Teddy getting taken out, I personally believe that it probably should happen, because you saw that he threatened to take out Franklin. But I kind of feel like because next week is episode 9, something else is going to happen to get it to that finale. Because if you get to the final episode, um, it makes you wonder how the show is going to end. I kind of feel like, as a viewer, I actually want to see a showdown between Franklin and Teddy. I don't want, obviously, Franklin can torture him in the next episode. That's fine. But I would love to see these guys go toe to toe against each other. The other last point that I will mention too is that the situation is interesting now because Ruben and Teddy are being held captive. Does that mean that they may form an unlikely alliance temporarily because they want to get their hands on Gustavo and Franklin? That's a very good question. And I would love to see if that's what's going to happen. Because again, Ruben knows some stuff as well. As he mentioned in that trailer, he has Franklin talking, on tape. So basically, he can Franklin's in trouble with him as well. So that's what makes me curious to see how this situation is going to play out. But as a fan, I don't mind seeing Teddy get taken out the next episode. I have no idea if they're going to do that. But I do believe that JB's point about the CIA eventually taking him out, that 100% I think is going to happen now, because it feels that way. But we'll have to see what happens.
Oh yeah, excellent point. That would be interesting seeing Ruben and Teddy team up, because they have a different kind of training than most people. CIA and KGB, like, so they could, together they would do some pretty incredible things. I'm sure they could find a way to get out of their situation together. But I don't think they should trust each other as well. If they do manage to get out, because
Yeah.
they will turn on each other in an instant.
Oh,
But
absolutely. And that's a situation where I could see, Teddy, he helps out Ruben. They shoot Gustavo, and then right after that, Teddy turns and shoots and kills Ruben. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. A very temporary alliance, or maybe they will at least talk about it, but they may not do anything. But that probably won't happen. I'm just saying though, they both are prisoners at the moment, so I'm very curious to see what that means in terms of them trying to get free, and what are they going to do to try to get free.
yeah. So, do you think that maybe the CIA might come looking for Teddy? Because
Yeah.
one thing I know that we didn't talk about last week because there wasn't a lot to say about it, but like there was that scene where the CIA dude was talking to the higher up, and he was basically saying to shut down the operation or whatever. And then in
Hmm.
this episode, we see I can't remember exactly his words, but I think he was trying to basically tell Teddy like you'll get your badge back or something like that, you know. So they still have that connection to Teddy. So do you think there could be like, you know, a situation where the CIA actually comes looking for Teddy to find him? Um
Uh,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
100% yes, because the conversation they had when they made that offer to him in this episode, which says just wire the money and you'll get your badge back, that to me was them basically saying you need to give it up now. Either you're going to give it up or we're going to have to use more force. They know that he has been a loose cannon throughout the entire time all this stuff has been happening. And now that you have others getting involved, such as the KGB, the DEA, I kind of feel like now they want to definitely intervene. So this is why I say it's so important that everybody that is at that warehouse leaves that warehouse immediately. Because if they are still in that warehouse when we see the episode next week, then you know something's going to happen because everybody knows where the warehouse is at. Granted, the CIA, they have their eyes on everybody at all times. So they could still find Teddy even if he goes somewhere else. But the central hub of where all the activity is at the warehouse right now. So I kind of feel like if they stay there, then the CIA probably is going to show up. We know the DEA is going to show up because that's where they were heading to anyway. But it really depends on what happens next week because obviously Franklin is his only main thing is he's gonna be focused on torturing Teddy as much as possible, make him feel every ounce of hatred that he felt being tied up, and then I don't know if he's going to actually kill him. We did see the shot where he shot the ceiling, and then I guess that got Teddy's attention. But I have no idea if he's actually going to pull the trigger and kill Teddy. Obviously, we know Franklin can do this because he's killed so many other characters in the show. But my question is again, he wants to get his money back. He wants to get his money back first and foremost, right? Once he gets that money, if he gets the money, then I think he would kill Teddy. That's the only reason why he needs Teddy alive right now because he needs to find out how to get his money back ASAP. But after that, Teddy is a dead man. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. But I will say that I do believe the CIA is going to take action for sure now because that conversation they had at the beginning of the episode that was to let you know now they're going to have to take action. And since he did not agree to the deal because you saw that he told Parissa he didn't want to do that, now they're going to take matters into their own hand. So we'll see what happens next week.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that is a good point. Like you know, that's one card that Teddy can play with Franklin and say, you know, I can get you all your money back, like because 70 million is a big number. It's hard to like, you know, it's hard to not consider getting that money back. So that is one
Yeah.
card he has to play to kind of delay his killing, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not just 70 million. It's 73 million.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Okay,
So
free extra million. Okay.
that and listen, I would be mad too if I had that kind of money and somebody stole it. Oh, you best believe they'll be held to pay. So I understand that, but that's a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, and he has a baby coming. That's enough, you know, money to have the baby set for life. You know,
Hmm.
only one like all he needs is like that 3 million and the baby set. You know, and then that other 70 million he can spend on himself. So, you know,
Yeah.
so he's gonna want that. So, um, yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask about because I wasn't sure is you know, before we get to the trailer. Um, so I know Tony had this conversation with Gustavo after, you know, after the female agent kind of told Tony that, you know, what Gustavo said about the DEA joke or whatever. And then, you know, in the van when they're driving to the telephone or whatever, Tony kind of has this conversation with Gustavo, telling him why he respects female agents and stuff, because they can see through people and their lies or whatever. But he also talks about a previous agent, and I think he says something along the lines of Teddy, possibly getting to her or taking her out or something. So was this something that we actually saw happen? Because I didn't quite remember.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this is the agent that Gustavo killed. Um,
Oh,
yeah, that's the one he. That's the one that Gustavo took out. Uh,
okay.
so yeah, obviously though he wants to get his hands on Teddy, but really he wants Gustavo. Well, he definitely wants Gustavo after this because clearly that whole thing with Ruben that came out of nowhere. I guess they wasn't expecting that to happen. But he's going to definitely blame Gustavo for all of this because Gustavo didn't really tell them anything about this Ruben guy. So that's a problem. But yeah, that
Oh
agent
yeah.
we saw was the same one that got killed in the show a couple of seasons back that Gustavo took out and killed.
Oh, okay. So
So
it was a couple seasons back. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Right. Yeah. I'm starting to remember that now. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was a pretty cool conversation to bring up. I like that this show calls back stuff like that. Um, there was another thing that they called back to, but I forgot it now. My memory's getting terrible in my older age. So yeah. But yeah, that's cool that they called back to that. So let's get to the trailer because then there'll be more things to discuss once we get through this. So in the trailer, we see Teddy tied up. We see Franklin, shooting up in the air and kind of startling him. And Teddy says, "You've lost your mind." We see Ruben um, talking. He looks like he's tied up, and he basically says the KGB has tapes of Franklin. And then, we see Franklin and Gustavo sat at a table, kind of discussing things, it looks like. And we see another shot of them. I think they were opening a car bonnet or something, a car boot. Um, and then we see Leon holding Teddy, so it looks like they do maybe move him. And there's an interesting note about that as well. But I'll get to that in a sec. We see cops chasing Louie, and potentially raiding the hood. It looks like, I don't know. And then we see Franklin. He gives like an epic monologue to Teddy, talking about how in every story it's the guy that looks like you that wins, but not this time. And then he spins the revolver and everything. So that was a cool shot. But yeah, as always, a well put together trailer, very well edited. Things might not always be as they seem, of course, because of how they put these things together. But that was the trailer. So, um, what do you think that tells us about next week? Now, first of all, the thing I wanted to say about the Leon thing was, and somebody mentioned it actually, like in the very first time Teddy meets Franklin, he kind of holds up Franklin and Leon together. So it's like a nice callback to that, and that has people thinking that this will be the last time they see each other, like because it's kind of poetic if it's Franklin, Leon, and Teddy the first time they meet, and then the last time they ever meet, it's those three again. Some people are also saying maybe Leon dies as well, but what do you think about that? So first of all, you can start with the whole Leon thing, but also what do you think of the trailer and what it tells us about the next episode?
Well, that's a very good observation. So starting off with the trailer, I think that again, FX they are very clever at how they edit these trailers together, showing you all these various shots with little to no context. I thought the footage about Franklin having that line to Teddy at the end and then turning the revolver around in the gun that I thought that was pretty badass. Obviously, I don't really know if Franklin is going to kill Teddy. I think we all want him to take out Teddy, but we know that Franklin also wants his money. So I kind of feel like because he wants his money and he doesn't have it yet, he won't kill Teddy yet. He will torture Teddy until Teddy tells him how to get his money. Then he would kill Teddy. I feel. But yeah, the way they put together the trailer is a lot of things you can kind of tell, get an idea of what could potentially happen. Obviously, I do believe that Louie will get raided by the police because again, the DEA had footage of her when they took them camera shots of her talking to Gustavo, doing the deal with Gustavo. So I kind of feel like Louie is in trouble. She's probably going to get arrested in the next episode. You see that Sissy is a little angry, I guess, when she hears something that makes her angry. And I don't, and maybe it's because of the fact that Franklin is holding him hostage now, and she obviously wants Teddy dead. So I will be very curious to see what that conversation will be like once they get to that point. Um, the stuff about Leon, as you mentioned, very, very interesting. And that is a very good observation because I think that's right on the money about them being together. And that could be the last time. Now, again, it all depends on, you know, which path they decide to go down. Leon, obviously, he is in charge of the projects right now. Something could still happen with him in that projects when he does go back there because we already know that, a lot of people were making mention of, I believe it was in the previous episode, there was an individual that we recall that Leon got into a fight with in the past that looked at him, looked as though he wanted to take him down. And again, you had to really watch the episode carefully to notice it because it was a very quick glimpse of you seeing how he looked at how he was looking at Franklin. So I'm going to say how he looked at Leon. So I kind of feel like Leon's fate still not necessarily positive. Something could happen to him next week. But if he is involving himself in this stuff with Teddy, and the CIA happens to find out where they are at, the DEA happens to find out where they are at, then it's a problem. So yeah, I kind of feel like anything could happen. And what you said at the beginning of this podcast, Gary, I think is 100% accurate when you said it felt like a lot of people were having their final conversations in the episode. I believe that 100%. I do not believe that Gustavo is going to reunite with his family. Something's going to happen to him. Either he's going to get arrested or he's going to get killed. And I'm probably leaning more towards getting killed since we saw him getting arrested in this episode. Leon, because he decided to stay in the projects and now he's getting involved in this stuff with Teddy and Franklin, he probably won't make it out either. And then, of course, Franklin, I kind of feel like Franklin is going to get some measure of revenge against Teddy, whether it is he gets his money or he kills him. I don't think he's going to get both of those things though. So we'll have to see what happens. And of course, Veronique, we do see her in the trailer briefly. So she is still around. Don't know the severity of what's going on with her pregnancy, but she's still around. So we'll get a lot of those answers though, I feel, next week. But yeah, they did an excellent job editing the trailer as they always do because it makes you think of the various possibilities of what could happen in the episode. So it's great. But what I do guarantee though, it will be another intense episode, but I think it's going to be more intense for the people that are fans of Teddy. And I don't know if any of those people out there are fans of Teddy. Obviously, if you watch our podcast, I would like for you to leave a comment and let us know if you like the Teddy character. But I think the Teddy character, something bad needs to happen to him. So I will not be rooting for him to get out of this situation next week.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to hear from the people who enjoy Teddy and want to see him win. Definitely leave your comments. But yeah, what you said about Leon definitely makes sense. And another thing that I didn't mention also is, we got the little conversation between him and Scully. It was very short at the funeral scene. Well, the aftermath of the funeral. But yeah, they kind of had that discussion, and Scully, he basically told him that don't worry about it, and everything's cool now and stuff, and everything's in the past. So the fact that they gave us that little moment, even though it was very brief, it does make me think that time might be running out for Leon because he kind of got that closure with Scully a little bit. So I think that they put that there for a reason, and that his time might be coming to an end. Go ahead.
I was going to say I agree with that 100%. Like I had said on the previous podcast, there's absolutely no reason for Leon to stay in the projects. There's no reason for him to be back in this environment. So the fact that he is back in this environment means something bad will happen to the character. And as you said, now that he has closure on everything that happened with Scully, yeah, it kind of feels that way. Something bad will happen to him as well. Because again, after they saw what happened to Jerome, that should have been a wake up call for Leon and Wanda to just leave. Wanda left, all right, so she's already out doing her own thing, getting an apartment. But Leon, after you see that, I'm like, maybe I need to go back to Ghana and just build a life with Wanda there instead of staying here in the midst of all this chaos. But the fact that he's staying there means things are not going to end well for him. Either he gets arrested or he gets killed. But it's just not a good situation for him to be around. I understand this is Franklin's boy, and obviously people like watching these, the characters who are really close friends stick through, stay together through everything. I understand that, but there's no reason for him to be there right now. So something bad definitely can happen to him at any moment, whether it's next week or in the finale. So we'll have to see what actually happens with all of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't know if this is how it's gonna unfold, but to me it looks like, Gustavo might be left kind of cleaning up the pieces a little bit, like after Ruben reveals that there's recordings and whatever else they have, he might be his mission basically might be to kind of track all of this stuff down and try and get rid of it. Maybe I don't know if that means breaking into Ruben's house or or trying to I don't know where that footage might be, but yeah, it feels like he's going to be doing a lot of running around trying to wrap things up, but I feel like that's going to leave him vulnerable to either getting busted again by the DEA or getting killed. And I feel like at this point he doesn't have, well, he does have things to lose because he cares about his his girl and the kids and everything, but I feel like I don't think he wants to go down without fight at this point, because he's got this far. So I feel like he might even, feel the need to shoot at the cops if they come close to him. So
Well, that could definitely happen. One thing I thought about though, as you were talking about Gustavo, and this is something that I could definitely see happening, is that Ruben does say that they have recordings of Franklin, so they know a lot of details about Franklin. Would Gustavo not question if Franklin said anything about him in those recordings? Because I feel like Ruben could say, "Oh well, I know who you are because he's spoken about you. He knows a lot more about you, stuff like that." So he can try and turn these two against each other. I don't think it's going to be successful, but I just feel like when you go back to the conversation that Gustavo and Franklin had a couple episodes ago, and Gustavo mentioned about the DEA, but he said they don't know anything about you, Franklin, but they know about Louie. I'm pretty sure he will question, well, how much does this guy know? How much has Franklin told this guy about me? That's why I want to see what is the tactic that they're going to use to try and get out of this. Obviously, Ruben likes to play mind games as well as Teddy. So they're definitely going to try and do something separately, of course, not together, but separately. They're going to have their own agenda as to how they're going to try to get out of this situation. And I'm very curious to see what it is that they try to do. But yeah, it was good that we saw the alliance of Franklin and Gustavo in this episode. Again, we know what Franklin did for Gustavo in the previous season. And I like again how, like you said about the callbacks, because you recall, maybe this is what you were trying to mention earlier. When Gustavo calls Franklin because he's about to do the deal, and then Franklin is saying he's more nervous than he was when we were locked in that cage with that tiger. So see, I like how they have those callbacks to stuff that has happened previously on the show for those that have been watching, so that just to show that you are invested in what's happening every season with these characters. But I'm very curious to see what happens next week. But yeah, I think you make a good point. Gustavo will have to try to clean up the pieces. But again, because the DEA is still around and they obviously are going to want revenge on Ruben as well as Gustavo, they are definitely going to be looking for them as well in the next episode. So he may not have enough time to really sort things out. But I definitely do see him getting involved in a shootout, and that may not end the way that he wants it to end. So stay tuned for that.
Oh yeah, and thanks for that. That was exactly what I was going to mention earlier. That was exactly it with the tiger when he made
Yeah.
mention to that. So yeah, the callbacks, they're always really good. But yeah. So I guess, I mean, I don't have anything else to say. I don't think. Let me see. Oh, I guess the only other thing is, I'm wondering what is going to happen to Buckley, because I definitely want to see him get, get some payback for what he's done. So I hope that we do get to see that at some point. I don't know if Louis might try to find him when she gets chased, if she manages to get free. It doesn't look like she might get free because there was a lot of people. There were a lot of cops.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wonder, what's gonna happen to Buckley, because I definitely want to see that character get his just due.
Um, I'm going to make a prediction right now. I think that Buckley is going to find himself on the other side of the law. He's going to get arrested and thrown into jail because this is a character that was a cop that pretty much did all this other stuff. So if he happens to be there when they do that raid with Louie and everything, he's definitely going to get taken down as well. And that'll be very quite fitting, since this guy was a cop. Now he's the one that ends up in jail. So that's probably what's going to happen to that character, if I had to make a guess.
Yeah, that could happen. I definitely want something worse than that to happen to him.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
but yeah.
agree. I agree.
But
We'll see.
yeah, is there anything else at all that you want to bring up about the trailer or the episode that we just watched before we get out of here?
Oh no. Once again, I think that Amin Joseph did a fantastic job on the episode. I hope that he is asked to come back when they work on this Snowfall spinoff show, if he has the time, because I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of opportunities on a lot of other shows, movies, etc. But no, this was a fantastic episode. I hope people are watching the show. If you don't watch Snowfall, I will strongly recommend you watch the show, because start from the very beginning and you'll see that this is a really good show. It's outstanding. But no, excellent episode. Only 2 episodes left to go, and I'm curious to see how everything wraps up, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The all the talent in this show are going to be very busy after this show ends. So I'm pretty sure they might call back a lot of them for the spin-off. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if we also see them go other places too. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I echo what Rich said. This was a great episode. And Joseph did a great job with the directing. And yeah, this show has me on the edge of my seat. Like I can't wait to watch it every week. Like it's the first thing I do now when I wake up on Thursdays, because it airs when it's like I don't know, 6 in the morning or something for me, or maybe even earlier than that. I don't know, but yeah. So like as soon as I wake up, I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna watch Snowfall. Get me some coffee, watch Snowfall, like, and then right before I start working. So yeah, great show, and I look forward to the last 2 episodes. And I feel like we're gonna be feeling very empty when it does finally end, and there's gonna be no more Snowfall.
Mhm. I agree. I agree.
But that is going to be it for this week. Next week, we will be recapping episode 9, the last one before the finale. So look out for that next week. And until then, I hope everyone stays healthy, and I hope you all have a great Easter and a great week. Peace out.
Peace.